Before the awards, before the legendary films, and before he became one of Hollywood's most respected icons, Clint Eastwood was simply a man who understood timeless beauty. Not the artificial kind created by cameras and studio lights, but the rare presence that could silence an entire room. Throughout his life, a handful of women left a permanent impression on him. They weren't just glamorous stars. They carried mystery, confidence, elegance, and power that Hollywood could never recreate. Today, we reveal the women Clint Eastwood considered the most unforgettable beauties in cinema history. Number 1. Marilyn Monroe. More than a movie star, Marilyn Monroe became the face of Hollywood itself. While countless actresses were admired during the golden age of cinema, Marilyn created something far more powerful. She became unforgettable. Clint Eastwood once described her as the kind of beauty that made people lose awareness of everything around them. According to him, when Marilyn entered a room, conversations slowed down, attention shifted, and the atmosphere completely changed. It wasn't only because of her famous looks. It was the strange mixture of innocence, sadness, charm, and confidence that made her impossible to ignore. Born as Norma Jean Mortensen in 1926, Marilyn's early life was filled with instability and loneliness. Before Hollywood discovered her, she worked in factories and struggled through a difficult childhood that included foster homes and emotional hardship. But beneath all that pain was a woman determined to transform herself into something greater. That transformation eventually created Marilyn Monroe, a symbol of glamour recognized across the entire world. What fascinated Eastwood most was the vulnerability hidden behind her image. He believed many actresses relied only on appearance, but Marilyn had something deeper. Even while smiling, there was emotion in her eyes that audiences could feel instantly. Eastwood once explained that her beauty wasn't cold or distant. It felt human. Fragile at times. Almost heartbreaking, and that emotional honesty made her magnetic on screen. Films like Some Like It Hot, Bus Stop, and The Misfits proved she was far more talented than critics admitted during her lifetime. Eastwood admired the way she balanced comedy, sensuality, and emotional depth all at once. According to him, very few actresses could appear powerful and vulnerable in the same scene, but Marilyn did it naturally without forcing anything. Number 2. Sophia Loren. Sophia Loren was not the kind of woman who quietly entered Hollywood. She arrived with a presence so powerful that people instantly noticed her without her needing to say a single word. Clint Eastwood once described her beauty as commanding rather than delicate. Unlike many actresses of her era who depended on innocence or glamour alone, Sophia carried confidence, maturity, and strength that made her stand apart from everyone else on screen. According to Eastwood, she represented a type of femininity Hollywood rarely understood. She wasn't trying to look young or harmless. She looked completely in control, and that made her unforgettable. Born in Rome in 1934, Sophia Loren grew up during the devastation of World War II. Her childhood was marked by poverty and hardship, but those experiences shaped the resilience that later became part of her public image. When she entered the film industry, audiences immediately noticed that she was different from traditional American stars. Her beauty felt natural, passionate, and deeply connected to her Italian identity. Eastwood admired the fact that she never changed herself to fit Hollywood standards. Instead, Hollywood slowly adapted to her. What impressed Eastwood most was the intelligence behind Sophia's appearance. He believed true beauty became meaningless if there was no personality behind it, and Sophia had an energy that felt alive in every interview and performance. Her eyes carried confidence, humor, and emotional depth at the same time. Eastwood once explained that she had the rare ability to make people feel both attracted and intimidated simultaneously. That balance gave her a kind of power very few actresses ever possessed. Number 3. Ingrid Bergman. Ingrid Bergman represented a completely different kind of Hollywood beauty. She did not rely on heavy glamour, dramatic fashion, or carefully manufactured mystery. Instead, her appeal came from honesty, intelligence, and emotional authenticity. Clint Eastwood once described her as a woman who looked beautiful in every kind of light because there was nothing artificial about her presence. According to him, many actresses depended on makeup and camera angles, but Ingrid possessed a natural elegance that cameras simply captured without effort. Born in Stockholm, Sweden in 1915, Bergman began acting at a young age before eventually becoming one of Hollywood's most respected stars. When she arrived in American cinema during the 1940s, audiences immediately noticed how different she felt from traditional studio actresses. She carried a calm sophistication and emotional depth that made her performances feel real rather than theatrical. Films like Casablanca, Notorious, and Spellbound turned her into an international icon, but Eastwood believed her true power came from her honesty on screen rather than her fame. Eastwood admired the confidence Bergman had in her natural appearance. During an era when actresses were expected to maintain flawless images, Ingrid often appeared with minimal makeup and simple styling. She seemed comfortable showing imperfections and emotions openly. Something very rare in old Hollywood. Eastwood once explained that many stars spent their careers hiding behind carefully constructed images, but Ingrid allowed audiences to see the real person underneath. That vulnerability made her beauty feel timeless. Another reason Eastwood respected Bergman was the strength she showed during personal controversy. In the 1950s, her relationship with Italian director Roberto Rossellini caused massive scandal in America. Number 4. Jean Seberg. Jean Seberg was the kind of beauty that didn't announce itself loudly. It arrived quietly, almost like a presence you only notice once it has already taken over the room. Clint Eastwood once described her as someone who looked almost unreal, as if she belonged to a different world rather than the polished system of Hollywood. According to him, her beauty was not about glamour or perfection, but about something fragile, poetic, and deeply emotional. Born in Iowa in 1938, Jean Seberg's journey into cinema began unexpectedly when she was chosen from thousands of applicants to play Joan of Arc in Otto Preminger's film Saint Joan. Although the movie did not succeed commercially, it introduced her as a new kind of screen presence. Later, her role in Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless made her an icon of the French New Wave, transforming her into a symbol of modern, effortless style. Eastwood admired how she became equally important in both Hollywood and European cinema without changing her identity. What fascinated Eastwood most was her subtle emotional expression. He believed that many actresses relied on dramatic gestures, but Jean communicated everything through stillness and expression in her eyes. There was a softness in her face combined with a hidden sadness that made her deeply intriguing. He once said that her beauty felt like it could disappear at any moment if you looked away. And that uncertainty made her unforgettable. Seberg's signature short haircut became one of the most influential looks in film history, but Eastwood believed her true appeal went beyond appearance. It was the emotional complexity she carried within her performances. In films like Breathless and later works, she often played characters who felt disconnected, searching, or emotionally vulnerable. That sense of inner conflict gave her a rare cinematic depth that stayed with audiences long after the film ended. However, her real life carried heavy emotional struggles. Number 5. Raquel Welch. Raquel Welch was the kind of beauty that didn't need permission to exist. She didn't enter the frame softly, she dominated it. Clint Eastwood once described her presence as something that changed the energy of a room instantly. According to him, she wasn't just attractive in a conventional Hollywood sense, she had a commanding aura that made people stop and pay attention without even realizing it. Her beauty was bold, confident, and almost untouchable. Born in Chicago in 1940, Raquel Welch rose to fame during the 1960s when Hollywood was redefining its image of femininity and glamour. Her breakout role in 1,000,000 Years BC turned her into a global sensation almost overnight. The iconic image of her in a prehistoric costume became one of the most recognizable visuals in cinema history, but Eastwood believed that was only the surface. He saw something deeper underneath the fame. What impressed Eastwood most about Raquel was her self-possession. He once said she carried herself like someone who fully understood her own worth and never needed validation from anyone else. Unlike many actresses who softened their presence to appear more approachable, Raquel did the opposite. She embraced her strength, her confidence, and her identity without hesitation. That made her not just beautiful, but powerful in a way Hollywood rarely saw at the time. Her career extended far beyond being a simple sex symbol. Films like The Three Musketeers, Myra Breckinridge, and Kansas City Bomber showed her willingness to take risks and challenge the industry's expectations. Eastwood respected that she refused to be trapped in one type of role. Even when Hollywood tried to define her by appearance, she consistently proved that she was more than just a visual icon. Number 6. Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn was the kind of beauty that didn't demand attention, it naturally attracted it. Clint Eastwood once described her as the definition of pure elegance, a presence so refined that it almost felt unreal in the world of Hollywood glamour. Unlike the bold, heavily styled icons of her time, Audrey carried a quiet sophistication that spoke louder than any dramatic entrance or dialogue. Born in Belgium in 1929, Audrey Hepburn lived through the hardships of World War II, an experience that shaped both her personality and her outlook on life. Despite the suffering she witnessed in her early years, she developed a calm resilience and grace that later defined her screen presence. When she entered Hollywood, she brought something new, an image of femininity that was soft, intelligent, and deeply human. Eastwood admired how she never tried to overact beauty. In films like Roman Holiday, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and My Fair Lady, she wasn't simply performing a role, she was existing within it. Her movements were natural, her expressions subtle, and her presence effortless. According to Eastwood, Audrey didn't need to seduce an audience, she simply existed, and that was enough to captivate everyone watching. What made her truly stand out in Eastwood's eyes was her restraint. While many actresses relied on glamour and intensity, Audrey used silence, simplicity, and emotional depth. She had the rare ability to express entire emotions with just a look or a pause. He once noted that her beauty wasn't loud or temporary, it was calm, timeless, and almost spiritual in nature. Beyond cinema, Audrey Hepburn's humanitarian work with UNICEF added another layer to her legacy. After stepping away from Hollywood, she dedicated her life to helping children in need across the world. Eastwood believed that this shift proved something essential about her character, that her beauty wasn't limited to the screen. Number 7. Sondra Locke. Sondra Locke was a different kind of beauty in Clint Eastwood's life, less distant, more personal, and far more complicated. Unlike the legendary Hollywood icons he admired from afar, Sondra became part of his real world, both on screen and off-screen. Eastwood once described her beauty as something that couldn't be separated from emotion. It wasn't just what she looked like, it was what she made you feel when she was present. Born in Tennessee in 1944, Sondra Locke first gained attention with her powerful performance in The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, which earned her an Academy Award nomination. Even early in her career, critics noticed the intensity in her eyes and the emotional depth she brought to her roles. When she later met Eastwood on the set of The Outlaw Josie Wales, a long personal and professional relationship began that would define much of both their careers. Eastwood cast her in multiple films including The Gauntlet, Every Which Way But Loose, Bronco Billy, and Sudden Impact. On screen, she often played strong yet emotionally wounded characters, and Eastwood believed that wasn't acting alone, it reflected something real within her. He once said her beauty came from vulnerability, the kind that couldn't be hidden even behind a camera. What made Sondra stand out in his eyes was her emotional honesty. She didn't present herself as untouchable or perfectly polished like many Hollywood stars. Instead, she carried a raw, human quality that made her performances feel deeply real. Eastwood believed this intensity gave her a magnetic screen presence, even when she wasn't speaking. However, their relationship was also marked by turbulence. Over the years, their personal and professional lives became deeply intertwined, eventually leading to a very public and painful separation. Despite this, Eastwood acknowledged that Sondra had left a permanent mark on his life.